it's not my role to confirm or otherwise any of the details around that. That would be up to those organisations. Can I just stress to the member that it is vital that the government recover as much as it can of the $1.6 billion that it is in the process of paying out. And we intend to conduct a process where the Treasurer Treasury are working alongside the receiver that ensures that we get the maximum value for those assets. And I'd have to say that regular parliamentary discussion about and speculation about who made what bids is the role of the opposition, but it's not a game the government's going to get into because it will destroy value and prevent us recouping as much of that $1.6 billion as we can.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Can the Minister confirm that ministers did provide guidance or advice to officials on these offers, given that he was quoted in the Dominion Post on 1 September that he would be, quote, a close advisor, close quote, to the receiver, and that the Prime Minister was quoted in the Dominion Post on 1 September as saying that the government had assumed sole rights in respect of South Canterbury Finance because, quote, without that we would be in the position of being the 800-pound gorilla who would have to take marching orders from a mouse, close quote.
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the government has been running a process where it takes advice from the Treasury prior to the receivers being in place. That advice from the Treasury would have been based on information coming from the company itself. After the receivers in place, information that came from the receivers. I might say, though, that the business of whether there were offers around that time has been the subject to a lot of speculation. I'll just repeat to the member, some of that speculation, from what I've seen, is simply wrong. Otherwise, the government does not intend to get into discussing the details of offers, and in many cases we wouldn't have been fully aware of all dimensions of those offers.
Point of order, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, I seek leave to table a printout of a Dominion Post article dated 1 September that verify the quotations that I have just used.
Oh, we're not going to seek leave to table.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, we have got ourselves into an interesting situation. Sir, I'd submit to you that the Minister has quoted public interest grounds for refusing to provide any substantive answers whatever yet to the opposition's questions on this matter. Sir, I'd further submit that that's inappropriate, sir, because the evidence suggests that the government has deliberately, as verified by those quotations, left hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer value on the table for reasons that are unclear.
Order. Member resume his seat. The member is now starting to argue that the substance matter. The reason why I'm not putting leave to the House to table a clipping from a newspaper is the member's already referred to the quotes in his question. Anyone can look them up in the newspaper. We're not going to waste the time of the House with tabling clippings from recent newspaper articles. Supplementary question, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Finance. If ministers had decided to accept another outcome from the receivership than that presented in the offers of 31 August or 13 September, can the Minister confirm whether this alternative outcome will have a greater or lesser net present value than the $1.3 billion contained in the offer of 31 August?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the government is taking the steps it believes is required to maximise the value of the sale of the assets, and with receivership, with the South Canterbury having gone into receivership, the government at the time said it wasn't interested in a fire sale, and we don't intend a considered and valuable process. We don't believe that a considered and value-creating process should be knocked over by some aggrieved bidder. If the member's got some aggrieved bidder who thinks he missed out, well, that's interesting. I'm sure that he'll get more of them, because in the end there will be people who try to buy these assets cheaply from the government where the government doesn't agree to sell them to them.
Supplementary.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, if there were considerations other than protecting taxpayer value, which the Prime Minister set out as the government's primary objective, that informed this Minister's decision not to accept either of the offers of 31 August or 13 September? What were those considerations, and why did they outweigh the government's goal of protecting taxpayer funds when it would appear from documents that up to $500 million of taxpayers' money has been wasted by this secretive and mismanaged bailout?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, all I'd say to that member is that I'm sure he will find, as his experience increases, that aggrieved bidders will try and use political means.
Point of order, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Speaker, given it is the Minister who appears to have wasted $500 million on this matter, how about he answers the question rather than patronise the questioner?
When I get to my feet, the member will resume his seat immediately if he wishes to stay in the House. Now, the member asked a question where he made an assertion towards the end of it about the amount of money he claimed the government had wasted. Now, the Minister, faced with a question like that, is going to have a fair bit of licence in answering it. The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, as the member becomes more experienced in these matters, I think he'll realise that aggrieved bidders, if that's what he has, are not necessarily the most reliable sources of information or judgment on whether they should have got the assets or not. And I'm sure that having raised the matter in this way, he's going to attract further aggrieved bidders who don't meet our objectives.
Dr Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister, will he rule out the sale of South Canterbury Finance's land assets to overseas buyers?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, I can't rule that out simply because that would be a show of bad faith, given that we have an Overseas Investment Act in place. The member will be familiar with changes that the government has announced to that Act, which will be in place by the 1st of December, and anyone who seeks to buy those land assets would have to follow that process. It would be for the House's information, South Canterbury Finance are a 1/3 shareholder in the land assets, and it would be possible for the holders of the rest of the other share in those assets, to perhaps buy South Canterbury, but that is yet to be seen.
Question number 2, John Hayes.
Mr Speaker, to the Minister of Finance.